Hello and welcome back to the podcast One Dark Universe. I'm your host, Howard Cosmo Palmer, and today our guest is Jeanette Yancy. Now, Janet and I have an online connection or relationship or friendship because we found each other in the space of what I would say inner work. I would say yoga is definitely the primary subject. We follow the same individuals, if not inspiration, influencers, all those people online, and somewhat build a community. But Janet has definitely taken her life and her path into her own hands, and definitely guided herself into what I would say is a definitely inspiring and
Mm.
humble path to watch. So, Janet, please begin by telling our listeners and our followers and our watchers what is mompreneur and how did we get there?
Sure. Thank you once again for inviting me and having this conversation. I'm grateful in this moment. And just for quick correction, so my first name is Jeanette. Um,
Jeanette.
yeah, it's all good.
Hi.
So in terms of a mompreneur, so I'm a stay-at-home mother, and ultimately I look to establish a sustainable business that complements my lifestyle of including homeschooling. And I feel that my purpose is intertwined with all of it, my skills, my abilities, my interests, my passion. And it's really just aligning myself with ways that I can serve and others as I serve my family and serve myself. So mompreneur is ultimately, creating business around our
Mm,
lifestyle, being a stay-at-home mother. And however way that may look, some people work full time, and or they might be independent contractors or they start their
yeah.
own businesses. And I feel that still is incorporated within this idea of a mompreneur.
Well, you mentioned lifestyle, and thank you so much for sharing. Is that part of like the breathwork lifestyle that you do, as much as like the comedic and somatic yoga stuff? Like how do you fit that all in?
Absolutely. Well, lifestyle for me started when I was around 19. So
Mm,
I don't mind dating myself. That's over 20 years ago. That is when I made a conscious decision to live differently to what I was raised in.
mm,
So, and that first started with being curious about what it's like to live a vegetarian lifestyle that at this point has evolved into completely plant based.
mm,
And life experiences led me to movement and breath work. And so I started doing yoga and practicing breath work, eventually became trained in Egyptian yoga,
I love
Kemetic
that.
yoga skills method with Baba
Hmm.
Yasir Rahotep. I tend to centralize my Kemetic yoga practices on his method. And yeah, so that incorporates slowing down, being
Mm,
aware, being intentional, breathing intentionally, being aware of what comes up during that journey into oneself. I like to see it as refining our inner landscape, guarding our
mm,
mind, our thoughts, and redirecting how our thoughts create our reality.
yeah,
So yeah, that I feel it's like a constant journey and a constant growth for me because
yeah,
we're always learning, and the mind can be so tricky sometimes. It can default to negative ideas, negative thoughts, and self-limiting beliefs. And
yeah.
so our lifestyle in breath work helps become aware of those thoughts and our actions that may unconsciously not be productive, right?
Yeah. I think there's a balance that's needed in
Indeed.
life. And even with the mind, I'm a firm believer that it starts with the mind, or at least that's your antenna into this dimension. And as
Mm,
we blah, 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 we find our way through all that confusion and somewhat language that doesn't
mm,
always have words, but we find ways to articulate it.
mm.
Again, what is
Yes.
as I mentioned, we had, in my opinion, on my side of the digital world, we've never met in person, but
Mm,
I've seen you grow in that way. You've shared a lot with your online practice and your life and everything you just mentioned.
mm.
So what does like half a day look like to you? Like when you wake up in the morning up to like the afternoon, how do you get a chance to put those lifestyles into practice?
Yeah, I believe really and truly it starts the night before. Uh,
Mm,
I've returned to just being very mindful of how I lay my head and release what happened that day.
mm-hmm,
And so I may lay in my bed, for example. Well, after maybe going in the sauna, freshening up, and things of that nature, maybe doing some lymphatic draining, tapping
mm,
certain parts of my body to help release toxins. Um, then, coming into my bed, for example. Yeah, so if we,
mm-hmm,
we could talk
mm-hmm.
about that.
No, well, we got space. We got
Yeah,
space. We'll see how it
yeah,
takes it. But no, I do the same thing. That's why I'm doing it. I just
yeah.
haven't done it yet for the day. But you mentioned it how
Hmm.
it's a nighttime before the next day practice where you kind of
Yes,
lead yourself into that energy or into that day. Um,
absolutely.
judge,
Absolutely.
judging from the idea of the word night, meaning darkness, and the sun is on the opposite side of the earth,
Mm.
not getting too galactic, does that play into it for you? Do you find that there's a balance to your being when there's a night and day being, so you give kind of respect to the day being? Because you got to put a lot of energy, you got to eat, the brain's got to process. Where in the
Yeah.
nighttime, it's more of like you mentioned, a slow down, a coming to awareness with the breath, letting go, releasing, somewhat returning to a state of wholeness. Do you put that into space, or do you put like where you are in the earth and all of that into space or into your practice?
Yeah, to be honest with you,
Hmm.
this past year has been a bit turbulent for me. So my circadian rhythms are all messed up, to be honest with you.
Mm,
So my nights, they are very active in a way because I am in very deep thought at night. When everybody else is resting and there's nothing to
interesting.
do, I really get quiet. I really get emotional. I
Mm,
very much I get creative. And that doesn't say that I'm not creative throughout the day as well, but there is something about the night that for me it just really sparks certain energies, and if I can't rest, then I do something with that energy.
I
And
got you.
so when I finally lay down, I will more likely have some frequency music playing.
Yeah,
I'll have like an Alexa in my room, so I'll play like
yeah.
some heart chakra frequency or some cellular regeneration frequency. I put a
Wow.
blindfold over my eyes and I
Wow.
just put my hand over my heart and over my womb and I breathe. And I just eventually add words to it where I just call in the what I want to experience that I may not yet be experiencing in my life. I call in being aligned with my highest self, with my highest
Yeah.
thoughts. I call in being in connection with source and being a vessel and a vehicle to be able to use my life experiences to, just not be limited to my life experiences, right?
Yeah.
So I do all of that, and then I just drift into rest. And the
Mm,
next morning when I wake up, I've gotten into the habit of doing the same thing,
right.
just going ahead and placing my hand over my heart again, and
Yeah.
getting into my breath and giving thanks for the breath of life, giving thanks for opportunity to wake up, because many did
Mm,
not wake up that particular day or this particular day. And I pray that for guidance and protection over my family, over my choices, over my path, over my walk. And I pray for light. So it's like it's breath work, it's prayer, it's touching over my heart and speaking life into me and over my
hmm.
home. Yeah. And
That's wonderful.
yeah, and then we'll do our other stuff, tend to my young one, my 6-year-old, have some lemon water, some tea, smoothie, fruit, prepare food. So then I get busy. That's
Yeah.
why I love the night, because I don't have to worry about no one else. I
Yeah.
just
All the
focus on whatever
goodness.
it is that I need. Yeah.
Well, it seems like you do in my brain, a lot that you layered out there was intentional. It seems like whether the practice came from the opposite. Like for me, a lot of my now self, the cosmonaut, the intentional inner space archaeologist, came from a lack thereof. There was spirituality growing up, but it was in a different format, maybe like religious, encoded
Mm-hmm.
in religion, but there was
Mm-hmm.
still more of a self-practice and a self-awareness and a self-love. And it allowed me to pick up books and read and learn more.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times when I know what I didn't want from what I didn't like that was happening around me.
Mm-hmm.
So I used the contrast to grow, not to blame as much as I probably did in the beginning, but once I got a little bit of wisdom, then I learned to let it go. It seems like
Mm-hmm.
you're doing the same thing, in your own words, and that's wonderful. And you turned it into a business. It is a daily practice. It's obvious that you have a community of people that you are with that helps you grow. So
Mm-hmm.
there's that level of consistency that's going.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think, or why do you think or feel, whichever way you'd like to answer that,
Right.
um, it's so important to be and become what you have in your life now for anyone?
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely. Sure.
why do you think?
Yeah, sure. It, I come to realize that we all carry a lot. We're loaded with a lot of our personal experiences, whether it's loss, grief, trauma, shame, guilt, and the mind it's sometimes the conversation in our mind is centered around those experiences. So I find that incorporating intentional practices help us move from those experiences to love and gratitude, and basically alchemize our
Hmm
experiences, you know
Yeah.
yeah, otherwise we're really just stuck in this three-dimensional material world. And I feel like we're more than that. I know that we're more than that. you know I feel that we are having this human experience, but we're all spirit, really. you
Yeah.
know yeah, and that is outside of religion, because well, honestly, my family weren't necessarily religious, but like my direct family, immediate
Yeah.
family, yet I have always had an interest in things within the spiritual life. I did choose to be, I did choose a non-denominational Christian church when I was the late teenager. I then,
mm
lived within the Rastafari lifestyle for a good portion of
mm
my adult years. And I feel that foundation is good and strong. And yet now I realize the universality in all truth that is
mm
rooted in peace, love, harmony, order, justice, reciprocity, the certain principles,
Yeah.
like you mentioned comedic yoga
Yeah.
earlier, the
Yeah.
principles of my app. And yeah, so I have evolved as you have within my own knowing,
Yeah.
right, to what resonates, what God or source has revealed to me that
mm
sits well within my spirit, that then I work through and walk through. And those are the
mm
practices, to help shift. Because, we haven't spoke to it directly, but I have three sons, and my firstborn son passed away unexpectedly and traumatically last year, 2024, in May. And I had to figure out, what do I do with this?
mm
Those that have experienced loss intimately, because I feel like we
mm
all experience loss and grief from
Yes.
our parents, from historically, generationally, our
It's in
foremothers
our
and
genes.
fathers. It's in our
mm
genes, right? But we're in the space right now that those that are aware have to tend to it like a garden, right?
mm
And work through whatever may have stayed within the silence in the past, because our parents didn't have the time or the conscious awareness to handle it, to work through it.
Yeah.
So it's on our heart, And yeah, so working through the grief, working through the pain, working through the
mm
mess, feeling all of it, and still giving thanks, and still finding a way to find the medicine in
Yeah.
the pain and the mess. So I feel like we all need that.
So let me ask you this, and before we continue, I'd like to take a moment for your son.
Mm,
My condolences.
thank you.
I can definitely resonate. So
I appreciate that.
you're welcome. And as we continue in that breath, possibly, how do you move on when you can't? When life gives you something so heavy that just because you're strong doesn't mean you lift heavy things.
Mm.
How do you return? Give
Mm-hmm.
me an example.
Sure. How do we return? It's like remembering that we are more than this. And that's the hardest thing as a mother. I could speak from that experience because when you birth, that child has formed within you. That child is delivered through you and you
Mm,
nurture it. Like me, I've breastfed my three children.
mm,
And so you feel that that's yours,
of
right?
course, of course.
And then when a child transitions, when your child transitions, you feel like a part of you is gone. There's a void,
Hmm.
there's an emptiness. So it hurts deep. I've heard somebody say that, giving birth, a mother's greatest pain is giving birth. But really and truly, that's a fallacy because a woman's greatest pain is having to bury or cremate her child, right?
Yeah,
Because that's outside of the natural order of things.
yeah.
So I've had to reconcile that he didn't belong to me.
Mm,
I had him. He was like I borrowed him. I was
mm,
blessed enough to hold him, to bring him forward, to experience him, and that's the hardest thing. In my opinion, that's the hardest thing a mother can do is let go of that sense of ownership over
mm.
the child that has grown
Of
in her
course.
body, right?
The word mother alone gives you that sense of, we use the word ownership, but not in a negative way, but like responsibility behind it, like a complete ownership and responsibility. So I hear
Absolutely.
you. I hear you.
Yeah. So I am working through understanding that we all have a job to do, and we all,
Mm,
even those that come through us, they're on assignment as well, right?
mm,
And their assignment may be short, it may be long. Some women give birth to a stillborn, right? Some
mm,
women lose a child at 2 years or two
mm,
months or at 35 and 45. I lost my son. My son transitioned at 20. So
mm,
I'm learning I'm learning to feel through the yearning of not having him here and
mm,
also the understanding that okay, I'm grateful that I've had the experience that he gave me the experience of motherhood, my first
mm.
experience in motherhood. And now I need to learn to relate to him in the spirit. And if we all
Mm.
are, spiritual beings having a human experience, we have to learn how to vibrate on the frequency beyond our flesh. And that's
I
hard to
think
do.
yeah, that's I was just about to say. I think I think you're vibrating on the energy of motherhood, and you have that book in relation to
Mhm.
that, and especially um, this past experience you're having now. You want to talk a little bit about the book for us?
Absolutely appreciate you bringing it up. Uh,
Mm,
Before my son's transition, I started working with a group of other women to write a book, a collaborative book, where each of us wrote a chapter. The book being called Different Shades of a Mother. Here it is. Different Shades of a
right.
Mother. The title itself speaks to our different experiences and specifically Black and Brown women, right?
Mm,
Speaking to our experiences, our walks. My chapter in particular is called Masks of Motherhood.
mm,
When we so let me finish my thought first before I go into the title and the
please.
content of my chapter. I started writing my chapter before my son transitioned. Throughout the duration, or process of the development of the book, my son transitioned and I almost backed out completely because I was in a different space, you
For
know,
sure.
and I couldn't return to the writing. And I just couldn't, it was just everything was overwhelming.
Mm,
Then I made a conscious decision. Yeah, I spoke to some people, got encouragement and motivation, but I had to fundamentally make the decision that I was going to work through it. I was going to write through it and use my writing as healing.
of course.
When a mother loses, or when a son transitions to a next phase outside of the physical realm, a mother can easily ask, well, who am I now? If I were
Mm,
defined by our motherhood, and I really took a lot of pride in my role as a mother,
of course.
the question arises, well, what am I now? If the fruits of my womb is not here, who am I now? What
All
am
this
I now?
practice. Hmm.
Yeah. And so I decided ultimately to write through it. And
Awesome.
my writing spoke to speaks to a lot, not only my personal experiences, but the unspoken baggage that our families, the unspoken pain, like abandonment, addiction,
Mm,
illness, that our families might not talk about, might be ashamed to talk about. So I bring it
mm,
out and I bring out my personal experiences of the evolution of a young woman into motherhood. And I do speak to my son's transition as well.
mm,
So I incorporate imagery, I incorporate poetry, I incorporate affirmations within my chapter. And the chapter is called Masters of Motherhood because, like you mentioned, we could be strong, but we don't have to necessarily carry the whole load all the time, but we're
yeah, yeah.
expected to, right? So there's these masks that we wear, like, no, I'm good when we're hurting inside, I don't need
Yeah,
no
no.
help. You know what I mean? It's like there's so many masks that we put on so that we can be strong for our family. And it's needed sometimes. I've worn
Right.
many masks. But to
Yeah.
really heal, we need to remove those masks and get into our authentic self and pour in before we burn out, before we get lost in the deep hole of depression, before we
Mm,
have to get stuck on medications that ultimately, and
destroy
I'm not
us.
saying that, some
Oh.
medications are useful and needed,
Oh,
but
sorry. I said it.
no, 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 you're good though, because we know when we check the science, there's a lot of medications that then cause other side effects. There may be a medication that
Okay.
addresses
Okay.
depression, but you
Right.
might also have suicidal ideation as a
Right.
side effect, you
They say it
know?
real fast at the end of the commercial. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You're like, bro, what?
Right?
May cause
Like,
death. Okay, why would I take that?
exactly. And true indeed, the medications are needed in certain instances, but the other aspect that we can consider healing modalities are most
Mm,
likely things that we're now seeing in the Western world, but come from like the Eastern, in terms of meditation, in terms of
yeah.
grounding, being barefoot in nature, in terms of
Yeah.
putting our hands in dirt, in terms of being around family, right? So I choose that. Since 19, I've chosen to live a more plant-based and holistic lifestyle. So I
Powerful.
choose to do these other things to help regulate not only my nervous system, but my whole biology,
Mm,
because we don't necessarily inherit illnesses, we inherit habits. And if we
right.
shift the habits and apply the science of epigenetics, we can change the direction that our biology will express itself, right?
Well,
So
if
I
those
find that.
habits,
Hmm.
well, if those habits are bad practices, then to your point, then they become the result that, that becomes toxic. And again, our children and we were children too, we'll just practice them into existence.
Absolutely.
It's a conscious decision. Everything you're saying is
Absolutely.
consciousness. And
Mm.
it's not just like consciousness where it's like in this ether and there's no reality. You put it
Mm-mm.
into practice. You
Right.
mentioned the lifestyle brand that you are with the breath work. You mentioned how you do it every day and the previous day. You mentioned how to return to it, especially with a heavy moment. And just because we're strong doesn't mean we lift heavy things. I say that as well as I say, just because we're
Mm-hmm.
strong doesn't mean we lift everything. And you're saying that
Mm-hmm.
same thing as well.
Word.
Juggle as much as you can on purpose. And now here we are putting that in a book, speaking to the Black and Brown community, and somewhat if anything, we can look at like a ball of energy, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
pulled it all together into one. I'm a big anime Dragon Ball Z fan, so my mind intends to go there. But just in case, if we're talking about like Western or Eastern meditation, the real practice there is learning how to control your ether, your energy within, that
Mm-hmm.
fire within, the levels
Yes.
of blue and red. So I hear you. And I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people hear us because we aren't the only ones like this. The thing is there's not enough of us or of this energy in reality because we
Mm-hmm.
see the contrast. I
Mm-hmm.
do hear you say, you didn't say it directly, but you can definitely correct me. Part of that is needed. Part of the moments that we don't desire, let's call it that, the moments we don't intentionally desire, but we find growth in, is needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't really speak on it because for the things that I've lost, I definitely didn't want to lose them. But here I am stronger because of it. S-
Mm-hmm.
So finding truth in the practice, even when all is good, even when it's not so good, and
Mm-hmm.
balancing that reality within yourself and in your practice is life, or is the life we both intentionally live. And for
Mm-hmm.
those who are listening and watching, offer yourself the peace that whatever you practice, find consistency. You
Mm-hmm.
hear Jeanette talking about that. You hear me talk about that. You hear these things around you on purpose. We are you as much as you are us, and we talk about letting go and returning.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you think that we haven't really spoken about that you want to share? I do have one thing, but I'd love for you to elaborate or share anything if we haven't spoken about it yet.
Absolutely. I like how you spoke to consciousness, but it not just being in the ethers. It really is a
Mm,
choice. It really is a choice. And that's not bypassing our experiences. It's really accepting. It's hard to accept the hard experience. It's good to be like to be good when things are good. But I have heard people if they're believers in whatever path of life, they'll curse their God when things don't go right. And it's really
right.
a choice to be like, okay, I see it, I understand it, whatever that experience might be, and be in a space of questioning. Now, what can I do with it? And
Hmm.
that's really been the question for me. What do I do with this? What do I do with this pain? Right? And being still enough and quiet enough to hear and to receive what it is, right?
Hmm.
What it is that experience is for. We don't want to experience anything, but even from birth, we come forward to life in pain.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
our human
Somebody got a
experience
cut,
is
bleed.
hurtful.
Yep, scream, get slapped. Yeah, yeah, that's
You know,
true. That's
the
true.
child
There's
is
that
in pain, the mother is in pain.
there's the
Yeah.
instinct that it talks about. And you're right. The instinct I'm referring to is like the nature or your natural instinct to fear. I think it's the fear of loud sounds and the fear of falling. It's like your
Mm,
two natural instinct. And then when you think about humans as like going out back into nature, obviously we fear the lion, the tiger, and the bear, and somewhat, and we have to find protection. I don't think those natural instincts have left us in this modern reflection or this modern life,
mm,
but finding a way to put those into reality on purpose, put them into practice, give them space. You
yeah.
talk about the instincts of a mother. That's genetic. No matter if you were
Mhm,
out in nature or in a building, you know what it is to love and nurture yourself enough to be healthy, enough to experience with a child, and as you mentioned, having somewhat the reality to realize this wasn't yours. You experienced this on purpose. You were fortunate. And that to me is a powerful space to hold. So again, none of it is easy. I don't think it's supposed to be easy on purpose. It's
mhm,
hard. I've definitely, again, had hard times. I don't even want to try to act like it's all easy because it's not. And when I do get silent. Sometimes silent that it hurts the people around me, but we find a way to work it through together, because
Mhm.
I don't want to live in anyone else's truth more than I want to live in my journey. And
Mhm.
there are times when I have to be honest with myself, and as honest with myself that I was lying. And so
Mhm.
this was a wonderful conversation. I know we can go into other things. The one thing I did wanted to share is congratulations on your books and congratulations on returning back to at least IG. Now I see you more on my timeline. I see all the work that you're doing. I see the community. Just really congratulations on that. I know I'm hearing what it took, and I definitely know you were at least gone for a while and then you came back now. So really, now that you're here, what does the next 1 to 2 years look like with all this? Now, when is the book gonna drop? When is the tour gonna drop? What's
Yes.
what's happening?
Yes. Talk about it.
Yeah,
Yes.
bring
I
bring
love
it
that
in.
question. Yeah. Um, Before I answer that, I definitely want to speak to real quick,
Mm,
that just kind of sending some love and compassion, and some virtual hugs to others that have lost more than I have, right?
there you go.
Yeah, for sure. I want to hold you and not and recognize all of that you
Mm,
are holding. And someone said one time that grief, ultimately, that when we share our grief, it becomes
mm,
lighter.
mm,
And that is one reason why I intentionally, vulnerably have started to share more about my personal experiences and what I'm doing to work through it all.
mm,
So willfully, I can support others and let you know, like, okay, you're not alone, and you will walk through this. And I offer tools to help you live now with
mm,
this void in your heart,
mm,
and fun and ultimately find the beauty in it, find the love in it, find the purpose of it in
yeah.
it. And so, what's coming forward for me, I've already started working on my second book because this was in
Ooh.
collaboration. And when I finished my part and finished editing it and all, I started working on my other book that really is
Mm,
mine alone, that really speaks more particularly about my experience, because that first year, I'm kind of still in it, a little over a year of my son's transition, but that
yeah,
first
no.
year, like, I'm just starting really.
And you're so strong with it. You're so strong with it, Jeanette, because again, I don't even want that. And I love to hear that you're so strong with it.
Mm.
You
I
know,
feel that I'm grateful for the practices that I've started developing since 2005. Because if I
mm,
didn't have my practice of movement and breath work, all of that stuff would be stuck. They'd be static with my connection, and it would be much harder to receive and to accept and to even be open to ask the question, what do I do with it?
right. Yeah,
So
because
I'm grateful.
you didn't practice any of that to happen. So it's kind of like you had to go in your toolbox and say, okay, that's a nail, so I'm gonna need a hammer, but not just any hammer,
Yeah,
Wow.
no,
Yeah, no,
really,
I again,
really.
yeah, yeah.
And it took a
It,
minute, I'll be honest with you, because, and anyone who knows deep pain and tragedy and loss knows that sometimes you don't want to do any of it. I didn't want to do any of it. It all went out the
mm,
window when I saw my son's body, you know, everything was out the window. I know nothing. And it was that for a while. So I'm
mm,
grateful that I have like this foundation I could return to help me walk through it, and that I am returning to. And I want to offer that to others. So I'm working on my second book.
yeah, I was gonna say
And
that's the power of the second book right there.
yeah, definitely. And there are some other things coming because I just dove deep into trauma
Mm-hmm.
and how the science of trauma and how it shows up in the body throughout this year, with
Mm.
somatic therapy training certification. I dove. I was in the pain. Um, like just okay. Now what is
In a
it?
space
What's
archaeologist
happening?
over here.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm just like
yeah.
okay. And now it's like okay. Now the question is like, what can I do with it? And bit by bit, those answers are revealing. So I'm looking forward
Wonderful.
to I'm looking forward for my second book to come out next year, and willfully the my program before the end of this year. I'm gonna speak it into existence. Before the end of
Yes.
this year, I look forward to having a 6 week program to support. I mean, others can get in connection with me now off my website.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, join my newsletter to keep abreast of what's coming, which is JanetteYancy.com.
Mm.
My name, JanetteYancy, as in cat EY.
I got
And
you,
you could get
Jeanette.
my book there. You could, get to see other things that I'm working on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to the book. I'm looking forward to the program coming up. And I'm looking forward to unlock my heart and my throat more.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
JanetteYancy.com. Thank you so
Thanks.
much for,
Thank you.
I would say, blessing me with this conversation. Again,
Mm,
we come from a digital environment, and here we are meeting still in a digital space, but finding the truth in our connection, at least with the knowledge we subscribe to and the practice we live on purpose. And again, for
indeed.
the listeners, the followers, the supporters, and even the aliens, everyone that's out there that's tuning into this vibrational consciousness on purpose, you are heard. We love you. You are cared for. We want to hug you. We want to give you your
Mhm.
praise, your flowers, your love, your intentions because we believe in you. We believe in ourselves. There's no ego here. I would say if the ego is used, it's in support to the love. Everything
Touche.
has its space on purpose.
Mm,
So, JanetteYancy.com. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. And, I'm definitely going to do my meditation for the evening. This is definitely going to reflect a lot on me.
mm,
And I offer anyone to do the same if they found their self after this conversation as well. We shared a lot.
mm.
And just because you're strong doesn't mean you lift heavy things.
And you don't
So
have to.
maybe
Mm,
yeah, and oh, you mentioned that part about sharing your grief sometimes make it lighter. That
mhm.
sounds like a Tower Brock line. And if it is, shout out to Tower Brock. But if it's not, whoever it is, those are some powerful words. Thank you.
Mm.
I remember that now. And so
Yes.
I'm gonna write that down and try to put that into practice. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, appreciate what you're doing and what you're working on. I appreciate this conversation, our connection over the years, and just how full circle we're here now. So I just
Right?
give so much, just gratitude to you
Yeah.
for this
Thank you.
connection.
I
Thank
feel
you,
that.
brother.
Thank you
Shay.
so much. I appreciate it.
Indeed.